Hello, everyone. It's Elena here from the Financial Planner Life podcast. And this week, I'm joined by Maria Mushtaq, who is in an advisor support role at Holden Partners. This episode is all about empowering all things in the administrative role within the financial planning profession. We talk about why the administrative role is so valuable, the value that it can give to yourself, the importance of doing exams as an administrator, the different future career options, and really we just empower this position and why it is so crucial to the clog in the financial planning business. Me and Maria also talk about why women should pay more attention to their finances and the different experiences that ethnic minorities have within the profession. Good afternoon, Maria. How are you doing?
Hi, good afternoon, Elena. All good. How are you?
Yes, very well. Thank you very much. So it's the first question that I start with everyone when they're a guest on the Financial Planner Life podcast. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience today and how you've got to the point that you're at now?
Yeah, of course. So I started in the legal field, did all my qualification and degree in there, joined my dream firm, stayed there for about a year, and then I needed something a bit more flexible rather than the legal hours I was doing until 2 a.m. sometimes.
Wow.
So joined financial services by accident. A friend of mine was working at Chase de Vere. She said I should apply, and I did. It was an exciting job. Lot to learn, especially for someone new coming in. And I've not looked back 6 years down the line. So here I am.
And we've spoken about this before, but you could have started your first position within financial planning. Obviously you had all the law degree, the qualifications. It takes a lot of time to get to that point, but you've as you mentioned, then you've stayed within financial services for the past 6 years. So what is it about this profession that's made you stay, that you love about working within this industry?
I think it's got to be the two main things. So independence, to work how you want to and manage your own workload, learn at your own pace, the things that you are interested in or want to specialize in. And secondly, just the ever-changing job, isn't it? No one day is the same. And that mostly tends to be because of the various different clients needing different things. Not the job itself, but just different clients will come in and they'll be like, we're special, we need this done. So yeah, it's got to be those two things for me.
Lush. And I think, when you're doing, a law degree or, building a career within law, there's obviously so much to learn, all the regulations, things like that. And we speak to lots of people that have got law degrees and want to, start a career within financial planning, or on the flip side, have worked within a law firm like yourself and go to build a career within the profession. So did you find working within financial planning really fed that appetite to learn? Obviously, it's a different kind of technical knowledge, but did you feel like it gave you, lots something to grab and build on, really?
Yeah, no, it requires a lot of familiarity with the different products that you're dealing with. There's also a lot of regulation now, which didn't used to be there when the industry initially started to get advisors in or new administrators in. So there's a lot of scope for you to learn. There's also that ambition. Almost everyone within my current firm is trying to get the exams done. Almost all the power planners, with the exception to I think 2, are chartered already, just in their power planning positions. Some of the advisors are fellows of the financial society, and so there is that ambition and that drive and you wanting to learn more and also be specialized in the field that you're working in. So that can be any career that you're choosing, and you're coming into finance, you're still going to have that drive, that ambition. You can also use some of the skill set you've obtained in your previous, career or field that you were working in.
Yeah.
So the skills are quite transferable.
Yeah, 100% very transferable. And I think financial planning, gives, lots of people a pedestal to keep learning and keep developing. And I think it's an amazing industry for, second careerists and people that have come from one firm to another. And
Yes.
Within your current position, your job title is advisor support. Am I right?
Yeah, you are, absolutely.
Do you mind elaborating to it a little bit? Because obviously we said this before, advisor support, financial planning administrator, IFA administrator, wealth administrator, client technician, I've seen the role be called. It's a very subjective, title, and each administrative position within different firms are very different. But do you mind giving us a little rundown about your job role and what that really entails?
Yeah, of course. So most of our job requires new business and client onboarding. Then once that's been done, it's also reviewing the client annually and making sure that we're giving them performance of their portfolios, taking any client inquiries in between, making sure that they're kept in the right risk profile. The admin's job isn't just back office data input, but it's also liaising with providers if anything needs doing, or obtaining quotes if any new product is being recommended. So it varies, and depending on how big of a client you've got and how much work is being done for them. Some of the clients tend to be simpler. So these are your wealth building clients, where they're looking to just utilize their allowances, their ISAs, their pensions, make sure they're building enough portfolio for, say, income in the future. Whereas others will have enough monetary funds, but just will need IHT planning or business relief if they've got businesses that they just want to offset the gains or losses against. So it depends client to client, but your work is quite varied. It's not restrictive. You will be asked to do something that an administrator in, say, medicine or even a PA in legal field won't be. So you can just change.
And one thing that I really love about the administration role within financial planning is that you really get to see everything from the onboarding to the implementation, and that you are arguably, I would say, probably, the role within the career, the role within the profession, the role that deals with clients, that really gets to see that process cradle to grave. And I know we've spoken about this before, but can you elaborate on that in a little bit more detail?
Yes, of course. So absolutely, you're right. You get to see the client journey from the moment they become a client, even prospect clients. So when they're just discussing their options and looking at 3 or 4 different advisory firms or wealth management firms, to all the way until some of these clients actually pass away. And most of our advisors have a rapport with these clients for 20, 30 years. So it gets to a point where you even know their families, their grandchildren. So you don't just get the initial wealth planning or management bit. You also get to deal with their estate. You also get to deal with their children's university fees being paid. And it's also a job role where you get to deal with every aspect of their journey, not just writing the suitability letter for them or just meeting the client to discuss their objectives every year. You get to see the whole picture from start to finish.
And I guess I would think so, and I'm sure you'll agree that that's really fulfilling. I think lots of people are looking for a job role or a career where they really feel like they can add value to the lives of other people. And do you feel like the administrative position within financial planning allows you to do that?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you categorize as fulfilling.
Yeah.
Some and I understand and respect that some people might think, building the portfolios of someone who's already got 2 or 3 million is not necessarily fulfilling to them. But you do also get those vulnerable clients who are elderly and are utilizing their portfolios just to manage enough for their day-to-day expenses, or those clients who are vulnerable and still have powers of attorney in place, who are looking to pass their estate on to, say, as a trust to their grandchildren. So those roles can really be fulfilling. And with most of these clients, you have to keep in mind that not all of them will have the financial knowledge that you do, and you need to be careful of the type of jargon you're hitting them with. So I find it fulfilling personally.
Good.
Each to their own.
And I think that definitely comes across. And I feel like in financial planning, and I've said this before, I feel like all roles within the profession, whether you're a T&C manager or an office manager or a paraplanner or a partner of a practice are all really valuable and really important. But I think sometimes the caveat of being called an administration role means that those roles aren't seen as valuable maybe as others. And I don't agree with that statement, and I know that you don't either. So do you mind talking to us a little bit about, why you think the administration role is so valuable and important to sort of like the day-to-day running of a financial planning firm?
Yeah, I think it depends on the firm you go into. So some companies will diminish the administrative role to just, back office and keeping the data up to date. In my firm is quite important. It's an important job, and the care that you can see the advisor giving to the clients and the power planner then actually keeping their circumstances in mind when prepping the suitability letters, it actually feeds back down to administration. And it's nice to see that everyone cares about the job that they do. And with the administrative role, like you said, it's not a small role where there isn't a lack of care or responsibility. There's a lot that comes with it. A little error in, say, trading or sending an investment instruction can just decapitalize the client's CGT planning for that year, or it may sell down funds that with market movements might impact them to a bigger degree than you can initially imagine. So I would say it's an important role. Quite subjective in that view as well.
No, I think it's definitely an important role. And I always use the analogy as, as I said, I just talked about loads of different roles within the profession then, but I think fundamentally we very much often talk about the administrative position, the power planning position, and the financial advisor role. And I always view them as three cogs in a machine. One isn't going to work without the other. And very much when we go back to what we were saying before about how the administrator is the individual that sees everything from very often through the whole process, from the cradle to the grave, they're almost like the glue. The administrator is the one that keeps everything ticking along. So I think it's so crucial. The administration role is so crucial. And I really like the analogy that you used with me once, that the administrator is almost like the final chink in the armor.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. You're right. It is like a tripartite system. So one thing will affect another. The job is quite interlinked, and I think where the essential part comes in for the administration team is that we are basically the completers of the work, if that's the analogy I'm going to use. So the advisor might go into a client meeting or a review and agree certain things with the clients verbally, discuss their objectives, discuss what they're looking to obtain or make use of in terms of the financial advice for that year. The power planner will then take that into account and prep the relevant recommendations, and then their job is done. It's up to the administrator to actually make sure that everything that's been agreed goes through till the very end, confirm back to the client, provide them with that reassurance that they're looking for. And so it keeps that rapport with the client, knowing that everything that they've actually spoken about has taken place and has been implemented.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, we've spoken about your obviously you've worked within a couple of different financial planning firms. And how has your role developed, even though you've always been in like an administrative capacity? You would say that your role is still developed in terms of competencies and technical capabilities as you've sort of progressed?
Yeah, absolutely. So initially when I started at Chase de Vere, it was quite basic admin, primarily because there was a lack of familiarity with the different products that were being offered. Chase de Vere are quite a holistic advice firm, like my current firm at the moment, Holden Partners. We offer holistic advice. That includes insurance, general investments, includes IHT planning, pensions and retirement planning. So it was initially quite basic. So you're dealing with review packs or general client queries or just new business bits that come in. And over time, it's varied a lot more, where my job has just become a lot easier, where you're just able to do it within, say, 3 or 4 hours of the day. And then you've got the rest of the time to actually think about improvements, think about the things you can do within the business. So it's been basic, then it's gone to a technical level where I've specialized in certain products like pensions or VCTs and EIS planning. And then it's gone on to reach out to other areas of the business where I help out. Well, I lead the charity team, I help out with health and safety, and you just have a lot more time to engage yourself in other areas of the business and make the overall client service a lot more easier. Sometimes you can also impact your colleagues' lives by making processes a lot more smoother and time efficient. So it's developed a lot more.
Yeah, it's developed so much, and it's so nice to hear as well that the position you're in and the fact that you've got familiar with your job duties has actually freed up more time for you to get involved with the wider business and help you push Holden Partners and help you shape them forward, because I feel like lots of people want to be within an organisation where they can really, help drive that ship. And while it is really dependent on the business that you're in, you've obviously said very fortunate to be within an environment that will allow you to do that. It just goes to show that, you can be in those kind of positions and that your voice is still heard. And in fact, once you get more comfortable and competent with certain competencies of the job, you actually have more time to get involved with wider areas of the business, which I'm sure gives you a larger job satisfaction. And when you've got involved with more of those competencies, has it been something that's like been offered to you? Has it been something that you've been like, no, I want to do more? Or has it been a bit of a combination of the both?
I think it's a personal drive, and you'll get that any company. So as long as you can show that you're capable and you can get any goals that you do have set done and accomplished within time, there will be opportunities that will come. And I think if any new administrators out there, you should look to utilize those opportunities, whether be it to learn something or gain a new skill set, because by involving in these different companies, you really get to see how the management system works, or how you're being maybe organize certain projects and what impact they have overall in the work that's being carried out. So it's an opportunity for you to learn, develop your skill set, get involved in something that you don't normally get involved in, and add a bit of change to your day to day.
Yeah, and just add, as I said, like add value. You're obviously in a position where you get to add so much value to your clients, getting the opportunity to speak to them day in and out. But obviously you then get to add value to the wider business. And for yourself personally, obviously, you're sitting with the exams, you're continuing to develop. Have you thought a little bit about, what you might want to do within the long term in the profession, or are you still sort of hashing that out?
You get that question quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's an interview question, isn't it? Standard. What are your goals in 5 years' time?
Yeah.
I
So we're on
think
a first date.
There you go. I think personally, I would like to get our operations into quite a good place. I don't see myself power planning long term. Again, it depends on the firm that you work in. Our firm is mostly DFM, so discretionary fund management, where we set portfolios that clients go into. There are quite a few advisory clients, but where you have set portfolios, there isn't much of the chance for you to engage in fund research, for example, which is more of the freer form of power planning. So that's not something that interests me. I think for advising, you've got to be a certain type of person, quite salesy, quite confident, quite off a, meaning to go out there and get clients. And again, that's not something I envision myself in. So I think down the line somewhere, maybe operations might be something that I want to stay in, but you can't ever pinpoint something set for the next 10 years of your life.
No. But I really wanted to highlight that, Maria, because I think that, people always see career development path within the profession is quite linear, as sort of like you step in as an administrator and then you become a power planner and then you become a financial advisor. It's almost viewed like that is the right or the natural career ladder. And don't get me wrong, there is amazing people who start within the progression as administrators and become excellent financial advisors when they learn all the different ropes. But I think it's really nice to highlight someone that is in an administrative position, doesn't see themselves as a financial advisor, potentially, we don't know what will happen, but, does still see themselves as having like a really strong career path within the industry from what they've done. And do you think that, I guess it touches on what we said in terms of getting involved with other projects, but do you think then that the skills that you've picked up from your administration roles or your advisor support role currently will allow you to do well in operations potentially in the long run?
I think so. Yeah. There's quite a lot that you learn, and it's also just some of it is general I guess open-mindedness, so just looking at things from a bigger picture. And it doesn't, again, need to be just limited to operations. You can go into compliance, you can go into investments. There's so many parts of the advice process that we have going on in a firm that it's not just limited to, say, advising, like you said, which is the traditional path. Isn't after you become an administrator, you'll do your exams, go into power planning, then advise. You can still do your exams just to get the knowledge and have that credibility for the job that you do, but not choose to follow the standard path, and involve in other areas of the business. There's always someone who's needed for compliance.
Yeah. And you touched on then, like the exam side of things. Am I right thinking that you're on your exam journey at the moment?
I am. So I've done 2. Doing my 3rd one, and then I need to complete the other 3 to get my diploma.
Oh, I'm sure you'll do so well. Because I was going to say then, just hearing yourself speak previously about, the industry and what you do in your day to day, I'm being hit with that jargon like, Maria knows her stuff. I have no doubt about that. But people, especially if you don't necessarily want to be a power planner or you don't necessarily want to be a financial advisor, some people might sit here and go, well, why does she want to do her exams, or what value does you think that they add? So I guess for the audience, do you mind shining a light on like why you decided to do the exams and why you think they are, how you think they're going to benefit you and why you think they're important?
I think it's a definite must if you're in the field, just like if, say, exams aren't requisite to get into the field, because there's a lot you learn on the job, and familiarity breeds knowledge after a few years. But if you have the exams, you've just got that confidence that you know the products that are being recommended. So next time you're hit with a suitability letter and there's a certain advice being presented, you have an understanding of why that's being done. It will also help you manage your own finances to a degree, especially if you've done an investments exam or a pensions exam. You won't need to go down an advice path or look for someone who's financially regulated, because you'll have that knowledge. You're able to help your families out. I'm not saying start, recommending certain funds to them for investment and once it hits low, you get blamed for everything. But it's a knowledge of the job you're doing, and it'll make you feel more confident. It'll make you feel a bit more capable. It might even lead you to be a champion of those areas within the business that you've done the exams in.
So did you find that your progression in different areas of the business has sort of aligned with the exams that you've done so far?
It definitely has. So I did RO1, which was regulations exam. It really helped me understand the compliance side of things and the senior management regime and why we need to hit certain areas within certain, say, deadlines. GDPR initial requirement came in 2018. That quite changed the financial industry. We had to get a signature from all of our clients, keep that in mind. Then recently we've had client duty of care come in at quite a stringent level by the FCA. They are, again, guidelines, but we need to show that we're treating our clients fairly and fulfilling our duty to them as advisors. So there's a lot that you learn through the exams, which will help you not only your job, but everyone else's job within the business.
Mm-hmm. And naturally, by feeling more confident in your job and knowing the ins and outs of everyone else's job, that's just going to allow you to be, the best administrator and the best employee for your business that you can be.
You're trusted with your job. You're given more independence. It's nice all around. You're not feeling like you're being micromanaged or, there just to do the hours. It takes that feeling away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess going to the flip side of things, I think one of the things that, you mentioned to me about is that sometimes when you start an administration job within the profession, and there might be people within the, within the audience that are listening to this, they feel like it's slightly a data input job. And they're sort of, maybe not having the exposure to clients or doing some of the more technical tasks that they would like to be doing. Like yourselves, they're hungry. They want to do more. They want to get involved in more. So if maybe someone in our audience is feeling this way, how would you get them to challenge that or overcome that?
I think as part of any job where you start from the bottom, which is essentially the administrative role, I think the only lower bit is an apprentice maybe or a junior administrator. There's going to be a prerequisite for you to do some of the dry jobs with a bit of data input. And these jobs aren't going to go away because everyone needs to do them. They're part of the job. They help the advisors, they help the power planners. It's an important job that needs to be done, and you've got to learn to walk before you start running. So it's one of those things that you do actually need to do for a certain amount of time before you're given that trust to deal with something more complex or something more gritty to get into. The one thing you can do when you start off a job like that or a role like that is try and learn something about a new product, or work with someone else who's, say, in the power planning team and say, hey, I'm interested in this product, or hey, I saw you do, say, CGT calculations for this client. Do you mind showing me how you did them, or what impact this has? And the thing about financial services is very much a people-driven sector. It's all about relationships and engaging with your teams that you're in, with the company that you're in, and not just the clients. So everyone will always be open to teaching you something new or talking you through something. There isn't that set hierarchy that you get in other firms, say like KPMG or PwC, where there's associates that you won't even see for most of the year. It's very much working with people, working with the partners, working with the advisors who you see or interact with on a day-to-day. So you've just got to be open and ask questions and have that drive to learn more.
And I guess you've got to earn your stripes.
You do.
To a certain level, like how long have you been within like financial services now? I think 6 years. So you're obviously in a position where you're sitting your exams, you're like hyper technical, you listen to yourself speak, you know your stuff.
Thank you.
But that didn't happen overnight, and I think it's really important for the audience to appreciate that like you're top of your crafts, and I'm going to go into your accolades shortly, Maria.
There you go.
But that doesn't happen overnight, and I think one of the things that I sometimes get frustrated about doing things on the recruitment side is I will speak to candidates who really want to be financial advisors. That's their long-term aim. They know what they want to do, and that's brilliant. I love that passion, I love that drive, I love that ambition. But I sometimes get a bit frustrated when people almost get disillusioned with the fact that they've got their first role within the industry. Very often it's an administration role, and sort of 3 months later they're calling me up and they're going, well, I've done this for 3 months. Like, when can I be a power planner? And I guess, you'll probably agree with me that, it's even, there is so much to learn in the administrative position that even if you do have long-term ambitions to step within a different role, it's not something that you can do like super quickly. You've got to learn all the rotations of what you're doing.
Correct. No, you're absolutely right, Elena. And it's also about the company size. So when you're in bigger firms, maybe the shift might be quicker than, say, in a smaller firm. There needs to be that position available, that role available for you to actually walk into. And also, like you said, have some credibility and some exams that are completed with it. Most companies nowadays will require a full diploma before you even think of power planning, and they'll shift you into something called a junior power planning role, where you actually learn on the job what it's about before you move into a full functioning role. I do recruitment as well here, so a few not
welcome
the whole aspect, but just the initial interviewing new administrators into the company. And one thing we always highlight to them is you'll need to give the job at least 2 years of your time before you actually think of moving into power planning. And I think some of it is to do with our company size. We are a smaller firm, and the shift in roles and job changes or promotions isn't going to be as fast as somewhere bigger, which is a national firm. But you do need to give a certain amount of time to administration, and 3 months, like you said, it's almost an impossibility. You don't even know the A to B of administration, let alone go into power planning. So yes, it's about patience.
But let's say, for example, we use that 2-year guideline as a bit of a guideline. I know we've sort of like, I guess, plucked that figure out of full air. And as you said, completely subjective, different people's journeys might be super accelerated. You might be in a position where you can sit your exams within 6 to 12 months. I know people that have done that, and you're ready to take that next step. But I just think I would like to highlight this because it's something that we speak to a lot with people, and I think it's really interesting to point. But if we use that like 2-year time frame as a bit of pulled out of thin air, why do you think it's important that someone sits within an administrative role for 2 years before they start thinking about the next step?
So when you join any new firm, the first 3 months are just 3 months for you to learn how that company works. So that's going to be their internal processes. As I said, financial services doesn't regulate exactly how each work is done within your company. They just want the broader goals met of client fairness and your duty of care being in place. But each firm will have its own procedures. Each firm will have its own processes of doing certain things. So the first 3 months, you're becoming familiar with the people that you're working with, processes of how things are done, their back office system, just certain providers that they're working with. Each firm also has different providers that they work with, and each provider will have its own platform, its own functionality. So first 3 months are just gone like that. You shouldn't even consider them as part of the 2 years. Then you've got your exams. Now, each exam does require at least 2 months of revision, and you've got 6 exams to do within 2 years. So even if you pace up 3 exams in the first year and 3 exams in the second year, you should take your time to actually know the background and absorb the knowledge that you've obtained from those exams, and not just memorize them. I do understand that the diploma exams are multiple choice questions, so you can memorize stuff and just go in and tick boxes and it's done. But you should try and absorb that information, because that's going to help you with your power planning job. Secondly, each firm has its own investment proposals and agendas. That itself is going to take you some time to adjust into, looking into fund research, looking into, especially if you're in the ESG field like we are, what greenwashing is and how we actually select certain companies to be part of our portfolios and their fund selections offered. Then you've got your manager that you need to satisfy. So you're hitting your KPIs, you're hitting your objectives that they've set for you. And then overall is about developing that trust within 2 years that you've excelled at your job, you've done your exams, you're smashing everything out, through the park, and the company will then be able to trust you with power planning job. Again, because the jobs are so independent, there's no way to measure how much work you're doing on a day-to-day to the tiny detail where we can see how long it takes someone to write a suitability report or how long it takes someone to prep a review pack. It's all about trust and capability. So once you're into power planning, no one is going to be looking over your shoulder, making sure you're doing certain things. 2 years at a company gives them that trust. It gives you that credibility once you've done your exams. You're familiar with the process from start to finish of how the advice goes. And then you're ready to step in and actually do the letters and take on the next part in your career journey.
Oh, that was such a beautiful explanation, Maria. That was so lovely. And I think, as I said, I think there will be people that are really hungry to be successful within the profession and might have a role in mind that they want to get to, which, as I said, absolutely, I love the ambition, I love the drive that people have, but it's appreciating and enjoying the journey that you're on rather than always, I guess, grasping for the next thing, because if you're really motivated and driven and you do the right things, eventually you'll get to the point that you want to be at, but you've all got to enjoy that journey. And I think even just going back to that question that we previously asked in terms of why that 2 year period, and people that I speak to that have been like, I've done this role for 3 months and I want to move on. Do you feel like sometimes the administration role within the profession can be a little bit overlooked? We've spoken about how it's so valuable, but do you feel like it can be undervalued by people at times?
Absolutely, it can. I think, especially for those advisors who've not been in the role and they've come straight into, say, a trainee advisor role after their grad degree, or they've come into from power planning onto advising, and they might not necessarily understand everything that's needed to actually fulfill a piece of advice that's just been issued out to the door. It might take a power planner 3 hours to prep that report and advisor another hour to overlook it and then sign off and send it off to the client, but it'll take the administration team 6 hours, 7 hours to make sure that everything goes through, confirmations are sent out, keeping an eye on things. So it definitely can be overlooked. And also it's the nature of the role, bottom of the food chain, essentially. So the job is sometimes simpler, but the volume of the job isn't simple. It's all about prioritization and management of your time. And that's a complex part of the job. The job can be quite simple and complex depending on what you do, based on you to manage it, and that's the key bit.
Yeah, because even though and we're using administrator, and I sort of like generalizing this term throughout the whole episode. And as I said, it's not very often that you work within a financial planning firm and you're called administrator, administrator, so the camera can see. You're a financial planning administrator or an IFA administrator, all these job terms that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. But I think just the word administrator and the fact that it's an administration role can have certain connotations to it. But I'm sure you'll agree with me that, this role is nothing but simple. It's something that should not be overlooked. It adds tremendous value. And while it is the administration role within the profession, it's not simple or basic like you might assume, other administration roles like generally are.
No, absolutely. It is a lot more complex. You do need to be familiar with what's being recommended. You do need to be familiar with the service sector that you're in. And I think even how to deal with clients. Our clients are a lot more nervous than other sectors. They are a lot more needy than other sectors. Apart from medicine, I'll exclude that. They do require a lot more attention, and they do require trust and that rapport. And if you pick up the phone and a client is called in and they're giving you their name and they're like, oh, I'm so, I've got this portfolio, I've just received this letter from the provider, I don't know what this is about, can you shed some light onto it? And you're there sounding wobbly and not knowing where to go and how to obtain that information and reassure them, it makes them lose faith within the company, not just in the administrator not being as competent. It makes them lose faith in the service they're being provided and how their portfolios or money is being handled. So, I agree with you. It's a lot more technical.
Because I feel like that's always the pushback that I sort of have to give people in terms of like the length of time that people expect to be in the role, or, in terms of, I do speak to people that are, I don't want to start as an administrator. And I'm there like, well, if you really dived into the nooks and crannies of the role, like we're definitely shining a light on today, Maria, which is why I was so excited to have you on as a guest. It's a role where you add so much value. You're invaluable to your business, to your clients. You can build on your technical knowledge. It gives you all the foundations to keep on excelling within so many different areas. So I think that's why it's been so nice to talk about that. But I guess you mentioned earlier on that you are involved with the recruitment side of things. And I think there will be lots of people that, are looking for their foot in the door and do see the administration position as where they would like to start, or generally just, other administrators that are looking for a different role. When you are recruiting people or you're going through that interview process, what are the things that you usually look out for?
Because we're a smaller firm, we look for a good team fit. I think that's our most important category. So we need someone who's optimistic, willing to learn. Those are some of the key things that we look for. And they've got some kind of familiarity within the financial services. They don't need to know everything there is to know, but it would be good to get someone in that we don't need to tell an ISA is, for example. We do have junior administrators or apprentices, like we call them, who have no knowledge whatsoever of what's going on, and we're happy to guide them through things and have training sessions with them and show what different products are. But for someone who's coming into an administrative role, we need to just know that you're the kind of person who will engage, who will be willing to learn, who will pick up our processes and socialize with the team.
It's funny that you say social fit is so important, because one of my colleagues ran a poll the other day in terms of like hiring managers on what you look for, and social fit was definitely on the agenda. I think the highest percentage that most people said, and I think that's nice for our audience to hear, and especially from a potential hiring manager or someone's in the interview process mouth directly, is that like just go in there and be yourself, and if there's synergy and you're a good fit, your experience might not 100% hit the mark, but if you show that optimism and XYZ, like you're saying that you're displaying, that you might be able to still find them a role within the business. I think that's really encouraging for people to sort of hear. And I think I touched on the accolade earlier on, and I'm gonna blow Maria's trumpet, because obviously Maria has spoken a lot about the knowledge that she's got today, and I'm sure it probably doesn't surprise people if they've got this far in that Maria is Professional Advisors Administrator of the Year 2023. So we're bow down. So we've got a great person.
Too sweet.
We've got a great person in the room today to talk to us all about the administration role and what makes a great administrator, because according to Professional Advisor, there isn't a better one this year. But
I think I just gave them too much alcohol.
Too many glasses of champagne, and they're like, Maria is... But I guess if we hone in on that accolade and on that award, and I know it's difficult for you to blow your own trumpet, but I'm going to force you to try, is that, you know, if you had to pick a couple of things that you feel like you do, and I'm sure people can probably point things out themselves from listening to this episode, but you know, if you had to pick up on a couple of things that you think you've done or you did to receive that, have you got a couple of pointers that you can share with the audience?
Now, where do I start? I can't think of much apart from maybe just one, care. And it's just care that I have for our clients, but also for the people that I work with. I think maybe that came through when I was speaking about my job and what I do. So it's about making sure that not only do our clients get the best that they can out of us, but we get the best out of our employees, and we also give them that same care back. So when I think of improving something within the company, I think of how much time can it save my team members, or what is there another way of us cutting out these manual bits that we do at the moment to make our job easier, or to make our job quicker, because then there's room for them to do something else. At the moment, we do admin letters in my firm, and that was a great thing that came in, because then they get familiarity with the power planning side of things. It may be simpler, such as ISA top-ups or pension contributions, or even annual review summary forms with no change, but that's probably what might have come through to them, just that you care about your job, about the people that you work with, and then the ultimate client output.
No, it's very obvious that you care, and that you care about your job role and you know your clients, and making sure that you do the best for your business and your organisation. And you're obviously a massive credit to the administration role. And I think even going back to the point that people overlook the position, and people overlook that, whether that may be, as we touched on, you know, financial advisors that have never been in that role, or power planners that have not been in that role, or, you know, people that are, you know, want to be advisors and view it as a stepping stone. I think the fact that I'm sat with an award-winning administrator, and that is recognised as something that you get an award for, just shows how much value that job role adds to the profession. Because if it didn't add that much value and it wasn't something to be celebrated, it wouldn't be being celebrated. So I think it's just like an amazing achievement for yourself, but an amazing achievement for that role within financial planning, and just displaying about how great it is really at the end of it. And I think another thing that, you know, you've displayed sort of like a passion about to myself is, obviously we've spoken so much about administration, but as you said, you know, one of the reasons why you're such a great administrator is that you've got a lot of knowledge about the profession, and really care about it overall. So like, one of the things that you've highlighted to me is that you feel like women don't pay enough attention to their finances, and that's something that we should sort of encourage. Do you mind sort of elaborating on that in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, no, I think it may be something to do with tradition, and how we've simply not had enough funds, you know, say 30, 40 years ago as we do now. Women nowadays work more, there's less of that housewife role that was traditionally there. So we do have finances, but I think even previously we've entrusted that to, say, our fathers or husbands or partners to take care of jointly with their finances. And I think as we grow almost on par with the income that we receive from our occupations or our careers, there does need to be a bit more attention to how we can save that money. Most women tend to spend their money in terms of maybe a show of quality or love, but on childcare, on meeting their house care needs. Whereas, say, your partner's salary might not cover everything you need for the household. So there's less of that, in my view, and again, it's quite subjective, and it may have something to do with my culture that I
Yeah.
come from, on saving for yourself and eventually planning for your own retirement, where your most immediate needs are childcare and house costs, and we also don't earn as much as men. So I think there's also that extra need for us to be more careful and manage our finances more. There's a glass ceiling that we hit in any career or field that we're in, which stops us earning on par with our partner. So I do think women need to be a bit more proactive about their savings and about their retirement planning. But I don't know how we engage women in that. One of the things we could do is maybe raise awareness of it in schools, get more women to be advisors and be role models in their field. But again, there's so much that needs to be done. And it will take some time. It took us some time to get to where we are, and it'll just take some more time to get to a place where we're competent with our finances and we know what we're doing.
I completely agree. And did you feel like, obviously you talk about there being proactive, and you touched on earlier on, being in a position where you're doing your exams allows you as an individual to have more care about your finances and have a greater understanding. But did you find for yourself personally that until you sort of stepped, I guess, into this role or into the profession, that you didn't have maybe as much an understanding or weren't as proactive about your finances as you are now?
No, definitely not. I come from an Indian culture, and we don't really believe in retirement planning. We believe in just having cash there, not even invested. Yeah, and you can imagine why the stock market and share business isn't really great in India. So it's something I get from my parents. But initially, it was about retaining a job, getting enough income, maybe having an ISA, which I had before I joined the field, and that was about it. But there's a lot more to how you can grow your funds. And I don't like to use this word, it may be a cliche, but making your money work for you. So making sure you get as much out of it as possible. It's quite a risky field as well, in terms of investments, where men have naturally been a lot more, I'd say, I don't know the right terminology to use, but maybe a bit more open to taking risk with their money. And so investing historically directly into companies or lending money directly, whereas we as women are a lot more into stability with our finances, and we're a bit more careful as to what we do with our money in terms of, say, investing it into funds. But you've got to understand there are risk categories nowadays, and there are investments built for those people who are cautious or maybe just want a balanced approach to investments, don't necessarily want to go into something adventurous, a new company startup that has just come up in the 5 years, gains look amazing, dividends look amazing, let me invest in that. So because of the regulated nature, I think we can take that risk a lot more now, and we should try to, especially if we want to get more than manage our finances in line with inflation. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but I think it's really interesting what you said then, like coming from an Indian culture, because one of the most beautiful things about the United Kingdom now is that we are a multifaceted society, and we have so many different cultures that all create the beautiful patchwork that is where we live. But do you think the upbringing and the upbringing that you had and the beliefs that your parents have sort of like ingrained a certain attitude in yourself, which you sort of had to unpick, I guess?
They did. And then I came into financial services and I had to be like, oh, that doesn't work anymore. I think especially in the debt-ridden culture that we've got in most Western countries at the moment, and because of the capitalist approach we've got economy-wise, you are going to need advice on how to manage your mortgage payments. That's another debt on you. Most of the things you can now easily buy via credit card, just day-to-day spending, you're going to need advice on how to manage that if it gets too much. Or the loans that were so happy and easy to take, easily take out on cars or things like that. You need to be more, it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man, you need to be more careful about your finances, because you don't want to end up, in debt everywhere, left, right, and center, and manage your finances within what you earn, not what's out there of just consumerism.
And I think it's really interesting. And I think one of the things that you noted as well is obviously women paying more attention to their finances, but also just encouraging more ethnic minorities into the industry. So when you were coming from like an Indian culture, you said at the beginning that like your dad was like, you're gonna be a lawyer or you're gonna be an accountant or you're gonna be this. So was like your financial services something that they sort of like encouraged you to do or potentially to step into? No.
Oh, they don't respect my sector and they don't respect the job I do.
No, and and if you don't mind sharing this, but like why do you potentially think that is?
I think it's a lot to do with traditional values that my parents have. There's certain sectors which they think, because they require a degree, because they require a certain amount of ambition, and because they have a certain amount of respect in the culture that they came from, they think that those are highly valuable. It's also something that they can brag to their families and friends about. So my daughter's a lawyer, so if you need any kind of legal advice, or my daughter's a doctor, so if you have any ailment within the family, you've got free help coming in. So I think it's just traditional belief that they have, and I don't think I know anyone apart from maybe one or two people within my current firm who actually thought of coming into financial advice and then ended up in financial advice. Most people end up in the sector by accident. So,
but I can imagine that that's quite a barrier though, because if we're talking about getting more ethnic minority, or the profession is nowhere near as diverse as the society that we serve, I think is sort of the key line. And alongside that, as a profession, I feel like we should be encouraging more people from ethnic minorities and shining a light on it to different groups. But I can imagine it's a bit of a barrier then to certain communities if it's something that traditionally might not be as respected as highly as other industries, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and also about role models, about who you see in that field, and who you're familiar with. Within the medicine industry, there's quite a lot of ethnic diversity. Similarly, so there is in law, but where financial services have had a certain strata of society as its main role model, it's hard for someone to envision a career in them. When I joined my firm, I was the only member of ethnic minority at my firm. The rest of it was predominantly white. And then we've recently had people of other ethnicities in it just to diversify it. But it can be hard when you don't see anyone else, I guess, of similar physical appearance, if not mental capability.
No, 100%. Like I think that, and maybe you will agree with me, or maybe you won't, but I personally think that by potentially having more financial advisors or shining a light, like we're very much doing today, on people that come from ethnic minorities in the background, more people will A, see their place within the profession, or B, feel that they can access the financial advice because they see people that look like them and talk like them. Do you agree with me or do you disagree with me?
No, I 100% agree. I think that's one of the reasons that maybe certain ethnic minorities tend to invest in fixed interest with their local bank rather than going to a financial advisory firm and looking to invest directly in stocks and shares. It does breed familiarity, and it also it's not just ethnicity. I think it's also got to do with age group as well. We've seen quite a lot of younger advisors come up, and there is that initial cautious feel that you get from clients when entrusting all of their portfolio to someone who's in their mid-20s or early 30s compared to the traditional older advisor they may have had. It's also the same with women, and they're approached in a certain manner compared to, say, a male advisor. And then recently what I found, this is quite interesting, one of our advisors has a hearing impairment. Might not be the right term I'm using, but he has recently decided to learn sign language so he can engage better with those clients who may have a similar difficulty as him.
Oh, wow.
And that's quite an interesting approach to have, because again, those individuals or those groups might feel excluded and might feel like they can't reach out to the standard firm that you might go to for financial advice. Yeah,
but that's amazing, because Beautiful, I think, is fully the right word, Maria, because as soon as these individuals, jump on a Zoom call, or, they get to meet with this advisor face to face, they connect. And again, it's seeing someone that, communicates with them the way that they communicate. So it's a very broad question, and I don't know if either of us is going to be able to come up to an answer to this, but there is no doubt that the industry has been tainted with this, I guess, overarching brush of white middle-aged men, and that dynamic and that picture is 100% changing, and that's something that we've got to be proud of. But as we touched on then, there's still a way for us to go. So in terms of encouraging these ethnic minorities and encouraging, people that have a level of disability and all these beautiful different facets of life, as we touched on then, how do you think we go about doing that?
Oh, that's an easy question. I think awareness is the first step, and then opportunity. It's hard for us to just throw an opportunity out there and not expect a certain social class to feel more open to applying to it than other social classes. But if we raise awareness about finances or managing finances generally at schools, I think it should be included as a subject, maybe not as a GCSE completely, but even a 3-month subject, making them aware about finances and how to manage them once they do go into employment. It might be a way of encouraging a certain social group, maybe more women, maybe more ethnic diversity, maybe someone who may not be as able as anyone else. So it's about awareness, going into schools, maybe encouraging people to look into their future finances. A degree also isn't a classic route anymore of going into straight after A-levels. So people might go into apprenticeships or employments immediately, in which case they need to know what to do with their finances. So school visits, social awareness might help. And that is about it, all I can think of, other than your credit agency that might help you manage your credit.
I was going to say, I think the one thing that I could think of, and again, it just ties in so nicely to having you on the podcast today, is just, shining a light of people that are women or come from different minorities. And, that's what we love about the Financial Planner Live podcast, is that we give a platform for so many different people in different roles, from different backgrounds, who have different stories to tell, that have different characteristics, a platform to talk about, their careers and what's important to them. So I also think, businesses out there and have an onus to shine a light on your great female leaders, to shine a light on your great advisors that come from ethnic minorities, and just talk about the great people that you have in your business, because all you need is to see someone that resonates with someone else to make them pick up the phone or call that advisor, or pick up the phone and say, I've seen that female director, I know I can be a female director. So I think it's just all about, as we've been doing, just celebrating all the goodness that we have in the profession, and hoping that positivity just feeds off, really. But I think if we're going to come this to a lovely conclusion, we've obviously spoken about so many great things today, but really championed the administration role. Maria, can you tell us sort of, I guess, the 3 things that you love the most about being an administrator within financial planning?
Oh, I think client impact is a good one. So knowing that your work actually has an impact on someone is brilliant. Like one of the examples I had, one of our clients, she's quite elderly. She also has mild dementia. So you've always got to be a bit more softer when you're speaking to her. But she loves to call me up when she gets her monthly income payment, and then like sometimes she'll send me a picture of her dog, and he is just adorable. It just makes me feel like I've got a connection to someone whose life is being impacted by something I love. So client focus has got to be one. Great team of people that I work with, that's got to be another one. And a third, I might say, just the changing role, just the changing regulation even, because it makes us do something beyond the normal bits we're doing for our clients. We've got a vulnerability policy now in place, and that just makes us a lot more open to understanding that not everyone who's above 75, for example, may necessarily be vulnerable, but you can also be vulnerable due to your situation that you're in, whether you're going through separation, divorce, or things like that. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think that's 3 great things, Maria. And thank you very much for spending the time to sit and talk to me this afternoon.
Thank you for having me, Elena. It was lovely speaking to you.
Cool. Is there any part of the podcast you remember that you're like, that was a good social
Yeah,
clip?
so I think there is basically, my question might be a bit rambly, but I'm sure you can narrow it down. But basically, I talk about how people often step into admin roles. They want to be a financial advisor in the long term, which is great. But then they are in an admin role for 3 months, and then they're there like, when can I be a power planner? And she basically talks about why it's important to be an admin for 2 years before you step up. So like the cycle that you go through. And I think that's really important.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.